Hey everyone, and welcome back to Masonzero MTG. I recently dove into scrolling through old Magic sets and trying to find long-forgotten cards that could fit into my commander decks. My main search criteria was old border rares that were under $2 in cost. And along the way, I found some really interesting cards that can serve as unique and unexpected effects, goofy interactions, or backups of needed effects. Not all of these cards are going to be slam dunks or even that good. There's a reason that they're forgotten and not very expensive. But I hope you enjoy this trip down memory lane and maybe discover some cards you've never seen before, just like I did. When I saw Hecatomb, I fell in love instantly. I can't believe this card isn't played more in black-based sacrifice decks. For 3 mana, you get an enchantment that asks you to sacrifice 4 creatures when it enters the battlefield. This is a dream to a commander like Marin, where I chose to play this card. 4 death triggers is great for her experience counters, and if you have something like Dictate of Erebos out as well, this turns into something that can kill a ton of creatures. Beyond that, it has a static ability that lets you tap a swamp to deal 1 damage to any target. This is a great mana sink, especially in a black focus deck or a deck that runs Urborg. I think this is a super underrated card that would be great for sacrifice decks. But what if you want to counter your opponent's Hecatomb and you're in white? Well, then Order of the Sacred Torch is here. It's a weird white control card, letting you tap it and pay 1 life to counter a black spell. It's niche, sure, but so is most white counter magic if we're being honest. The fact that it's on board and visible at all times may make a black deck consider its plays more. I like this card because it doesn't cost any mana to activate, and even though it only targets 1 color, you're pretty likely to have someone playing black at the table if you're in a 4-person game. Parallel Thoughts is a very strange tutor effect. It's a 5 mana enchantment that lets you search for 7 cards and exile them face down. Then when you draw a card, you may instead put a random card from Parallel Thoughts into your hand. This can easily get you all of the tools and more that you need to win a game, but it is incredibly risky. If this enchantment gets blown up, you lose all of your best cards. You should probably only play this if you can protect it or if you have a way to draw a lot of cards immediately after playing it. But I think its ability to grab everything you need in one single spell is pretty interesting, and if played at the right time, could be a complete blowout that wins you the game. I came across Rootwater Shaman and figured it was a solid inclusion for any blue-based auras deck, as it gives your creature auras flash. Now obviously, for just 1 more mana, Leyline of Anticipation or Vedalken Orrery are going to be way better and give flash to all your cards. But Rootwater Shaman is a bit cheaper in terms of money, although it's not really a big difference. And it may have the slight upside of being a creature that you can potentially attach your auras to. Worst case, it is an additional copy of that effect that's specific to the most important card type in your auras deck, and I didn't know this card existed before. Keldon Twilight, much like every card on this list, is not the greatest card in the world, but it does something important. It incentivizes players to always be attacking, because if they don't, they will have to sacrifice a creature at the end of their turn. This is a similar effect to Goad in terms of it keeping the game moving, so it may have a home in a Goad deck or a deck that wants everyone to be attacking or sacrificing creatures. But first, I want to thank LDB Duel for sending me this awesome deck box. They make custom deck boxes, playmats, and more, but what makes them stand out from the competition to me is that they actually employ a graphic designer that can work with you to create your own custom art for your card game accessories. But they also have a lot of pre-made options, like this one that I asked for, with the stained glass mana symbols from Dominaria United. The art printing is high quality both in terms of resolution and color. The deck box itself is a really cool design, where this magnetic cover comes off to reveal 2 removable boxes, one for your deck and another where you can put dice, tokens, or whatever. The build quality seems great, and I'll definitely be using this when I go out to play Commander. You can use my link, which is on screen or in the description, to get 10% off your first order from LDB Duel, and that's going to be ldbduel.com/discount/Masonzero10. Or you can use Masonzero5 to get 5% off any subsequent orders. And if you do use these codes, I'll get a little bit of a kickback for it, so I appreciate that. And I definitely recommend checking them out if you're in the market for a deck box like this, or a playmat, or something like that. Now, back to the video. This is going to be a pretty weird one, and its power level will vary depending on what other commanders are at the table, but Arena of the Ancients may just turn off someone's commander. It taps all legendary creatures when it enters the battlefield, and it says that legendary creatures don't untap during their controller's untap step. Commanders that have static abilities like the previously mentioned Marin are going to be unaffected, but commanders that like to tap or attack are going to have a problem. Just looking at popular commanders on EDHREC, Lathril, Edgar Markov, and Krenko are all examples of commonly played commanders that will need to find an answer for Arena of the Ancients if they want to keep up their game plan. Magus of the Unseen is a 2-mana wizard that lets you pay 2 mana and tap it to untap an opponent's artifact and gain control of it until end of turn. And compared to most blue steel effects, since this one is just for the turn, it does give the artifact haste. So you could steal someone's Playsteel Colossus if you get really lucky. If you have artifact sacrifice effects, you can use this in combination to steal things and then sack them. You can use it as temporary removal, getting rid of a key artifact for a turn cycle so another opponent can attack in. Keep in mind that when you give the artifact back, you tap it. So if you steal an untapped blocker on your turn, it will return to the opponent tapped and unable to block on the next player's turn. There are definitely some shenanigans you can pull off with this card, but in most cases you'll likely use it to get an interesting card for yourself every now and then from your opponent's board. Cornered Market is pretty goofy and I'm not sure where it's strongest, but you'll probably ruin someone's day with it. No one can cast a permanent spell of something that already exists, and no one can play a non-basic land that already exists. So if one player has a Soul Ring, hopefully you, no one else can play a Soul Ring until Cornered Market is gone. This is just as likely to affect you as it is your opponents unless you play a bunch of really weird cards in your deck, but it might be a funny game regardless if you just want to goof around. And of course, I think this plays best in a mono white deck with a lot of basic planes so that you can get around the non-basic land thing. Okay, these cards are getting stupider, but I promise they probably have a niche use case, maybe. This 4-mana instant, Psychic Trance, gives your wizards the ability to tap to counter a spell. In most cases, this is kind of just a 4-mana counterspell that requires you to also tap a creature, which is pretty terrible. But think about the potential ceiling! Imagine your opponents are in a magic war and they have a huge stack of spells going off, and you cast this and counter each one of them. Wait, what do you mean Summary Dismissal is just better? Okay, yeah, but this is thematic and silly and does let you choose which exact spells to counter. If you played Naban or Azami, it might be fun to include this card as a silver bullet for certain situations, or just to surprise people. Sigil of the New Dawn is a recursion tool that may not be the most amazing, but it is repeatable, which does have value. It is a 4-mana enchantment that does nothing when it enters the battlefield, and when a creature you control dies, you can pay 2 mana and put it back in your hand. It's nice to have the option, and maybe in some decks you'll find this to be a useful tool for surviving removal. So what do you think of these silly cards? Are they playable, or do they mostly cost under $2 for a good reason? Let me know in the comments if you think you'll play any of these, and let me know if you play any obscure 90s cards in your deck that I didn't mention here. And of course, subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.